Hi Year 10, just a short video today to have a little chat with you about the revision for summer. Obviously we are in the last week of term, which feels very, very strange. And I know from talking to lots of you that you are already thinking ahead to revision for the summer. Let me just start by saying that it is very important that during this time you take some time to rest, recuperate, recharge your batteries, ready for arriving back at school in September. Having said that, you know, every other year we would say the same, so this year is no different. It is important that during this summer break, and it's a long break this year, it's 7 weeks, that you do keep ticking over with your revision for English. Like it or not, with the exams looming next summer, there is a lot of knowledge that you need to know, and if you just neglect your studies for the next 7 weeks, you're just making that mountain a little bit harder to climb in September. So I really, really do urge you to come up with some sort of revision plan for the summer. Make sure you're planning in, you know, lots of days off too, and, you know, lots of things for pleasure. But within that, do make some time to try and do some revision. How do you start making that plan? Well, just speaking from an English perspective, the way I would do it, to be honest, when I was at school, I had a tendency with revision to think, right, I need to do a bit of English revision. Oh, I really enjoyed Mice and Men, so I'm going to revise that. When actually that was probably not the best use of my time. What I really should have been doing was thinking, what is there on my syllabus that I struggle with and that I need to improve on? So what I would advise you to do is think about what we have studied this academic year. So you will have all looked at the Power and Conflict cluster of 15 poems, and in Spectacles you will have either studied Jekyll and Hyde or A Christmas Carol, Macbeth, and then Language Paper 1. The first thing I would do if I was you was to think about how confident I was in each of those topics, and I might possibly rank them numbers 1 to 5. Whichever one I'm putting as 1, which I'm the most confident at, I would probably not be going to that straight away for revision. I would be thinking, right, okay, possibly I don't feel that confident with Jekyll and Hyde. It feels like it was a long time since we studied it. So the first part of my revision is going to focus on that, and I would do it that way. Now, Mrs. Wood has already put a link to Seneca on ePraise, and I am really, really pleased to see that loads of you have already signed up, which is brilliant. Seneca is an absolutely excellent resource, and I really encourage you to be using that. So if you haven't done that yet, please have a look at Mrs. Wood's message and get yourself signed up for that. So once you have decided which of those topics you're going to start with, you know, how you manage it is up to you. You might want to maybe do a full day of English each week. My recommendation would be short, sharp bursts. So, you know, a little bit every couple of days would be absolutely brilliant. So once you've decided what you want to do, there will be a number of resources uploaded to ePraise, and I literally just want to do this video to, you know, stop you feeling overwhelmed and to quickly talk you through each resource and explain how it might help you. So the first resource that you will see is uploaded is for the Power and Conflict poetry. So if you identify this as something you're not that confident with, you know, maybe start with this. At the top of each of the different PowerPoint slides, you will see a quotation. So here's the quotation here, and your job will be to essentially, you know, really get to grips with that quotation. So the first thing you'll need to do is identify which poem it's from and who wrote that poem. If you have your anthology at home, great. If you don't, fear not, these are all available online on, you know, you just have to Google it. So poem it's from, who wrote it, what's it referring to, so what's the quotation about, what is its context within the poem. It'll ask you to do a little bit with the actual devices here, so define the term adjective. Within this part of the text, can you pick out what the adjectives are? Highlight this caesura in this. So you should know what all of these terms are. I will put an extra resource on there for, I'm just going to write this down to remind myself, all the different subject terminology for poetry. So I will add that to ePraise for you, just in case there are any terms that you have forgotten. Again, talking about the nouns and plosives, so I'll make sure that's all in there for you. Can you link it to any of the other poems, this quote, and how can you do that? And then what is the writer saying about power in these lines? What is his message? And you will see that is the biggest box, because we know that, you know, that is the most important thing in your analysis. Okay, so for each of the different poems, there will be a slide like this. So if you could work your way through all of those slides, that would be absolutely excellent, and it will just keep you ticking over. You might find that when you've worked your way through the slides or the quotes, you might think, right, that's a really good quote, that I want to learn it. So there's some things you could be doing. You could be doing something as simple as writing them on a post-it note and sticking it above your bed or above the mirror in the bathroom, and perhaps you'll try and learn one quote, you know, over a week, and really try and get that to sit inside your brain and stay there ready for the exams. Other ways of learning quotes, you know, perhaps see if you can get someone on board to test you or quiz you. Some people actually just like to write them out over and over again. You know, for some people that won't work, but for me, certainly, that is a technique that works. So you do whatever you want to try and learn those quotes, but the more of these that obviously you know, the better. So that's the focus for power and conflict. I've also put an actual template of that box on here, in case you wanted to do, if you find that useful and you find that a really helpful tool for you personally, you could do the same with Jekyll and Hyde. You could work your way through the book and perhaps try and pick out one quotation from each chapter. You could do it with an inspector calls, perhaps for each character, and likewise for Macbeth. So just an idea for you there, and something to get you started with that revision. Okay, in terms of an inspector calls, what I have provided for revision for you here is this. So this is what we call a knowledge organizer. So it's just an opportunity for you to kind of see exactly what you can remember. I mean, you did this at the beginning of year 10, and you'll see that some bits of it have been filled in for you. There's lots of blank spaces. So can you do like a plot overview of what happens in Act 1? You might need to go back you know, and get your copy of the book to do that. You might already be able to do that. The same for Act 2 and then Act 3, and you'll see there's some pointers in there, some key information about the set, the structure, the genre of the play, and then some information about each of the characters. Obviously we've got a missing character here, but hopefully this information will help you predict who that character is. So that's all about character. This bit here is about different devices. So for example, dramatic irony, can you write a definition of that? You might want to think of an example where that's used, what are stage directions, etc. Context, really important with the play. So what was going on in 1912, what was happening with women at the time? Can you talk about why World War I and that period is important to the play? And then there's also some additional information about context there that has actually already been filled in for you. So that's just something to get you started with an inspector calls. It might also be an idea to rewatch one of the productions. There are some really good ones out there. There's a bit of a campaign at the moment for the BBC one to be made available to students. I know a lot of teachers have signed a petition for that. I will update you if that happens. But you can perhaps purchase a copy on Amazon, I'm sure, or other websites, of course. I am sure that if you do that, then it'd be quite easy to sell afterwards. You know, perhaps a couple of you as friends might want to chip in, and you could share them. Obviously, make sure you disinfect them first. So that's a bit of an idea of what you could be doing for an inspector calls. I've also uploaded 100 questions linked to inspector calls. This will be put on an A4 sheet. It's on PowerPoint here, so these dark ones aren't any different to these lighter ones. It's just the way it's copied over. But we always say to students that for literature you need that knowledge, so it's worth, you know, perhaps you could get someone to quiz you on this. You know, where does Eric steal the money from to try and support Eva? And if there is a question you don't know the answer, go back to the play, have a look, and see if you can find the answer. You know, how does Eva Smith kill herself? These are all things you should be able to know. And I'm hoping that when you come back in September, I'll be able to ask you any of those questions off that sheet, and you will know the answer. So that's another thing that you can be working your way through. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, not everyone will be studying this in year 10, so if you are studying A Christmas Carol, please just disregard what I'm going to say now. So in terms of Jekyll and Hyde, my first thing that I might be advising you to do, because it is so long since you've read it, is either listening to an audiobook version, and there are lots of those on YouTube that are free. We also sent you a copy of the book, a link to the copy of the book through ePraise a while ago. If you can't find that, let me know. Or rereading the text. And it might just be worth, as you're rereading, to have like an A4 pad or something like that, and perhaps start trying to pick out some key quotations. You could then use that to you know, create revision posters for the key characters. Perhaps if you really wanted to challenge yourself, you could do that in terms of themes. So that might be a good place to start. You can also have a look at things like BBC Bite Size. There's quite a lot of good videos on there about Jekyll and Hyde, just to recap you on character and theme. So yeah, have a look. But I've also uploaded this booklet, and you know, this in itself will be really helpful just to refresh you. So a quick summary: what happens in each of the 10 chapters. You know, you need to be able to recall that information. It is important. You need to be able to place whatever extract you're given in the exam in the context of it, of the book. So that's a really good exercise to start with. And then there are lots of extracts for you to read, so they're important extracts, lots of which we will come back to in revision in year 11. And then it's asking you to do things like summarise, say what's true or false about the extract and about the characters. And there's just basically throughout a range of those extracts that you can be reading through and working if you don't want to reread the whole novel. So I would advise you to be working through that. I mean, here for chapter 3, you'll see it's in a slightly different format. It's asking you to answer questions based on it. So yeah, there's all sorts of different things that you can be doing within that booklet to help you with Jekyll and Hyde. And obviously it's different to the work you were asked to do before. I should note at this point, obviously I won't be on my emails constantly throughout the holidays, but if you do want to, for example, have a go at doing a practice essay and you want to send it me, I can't say how long it will take me to get back to you. but by the time we're back in, you know, I will get some feedback to you as soon as I can, really. Yeah, so that's just for you to consider if you are doing Jekyll and Hyde. For those of you who are working on A Christmas Carol, in a similar way, there is a revision booklet for you to start working through, about the plot, asking you to summarise, and then little quizzes on the text. Just like I said about Jekyll and Hyde at the moment, at the beginning, you might want to rewatch the film version. There's obviously the really good Disney one. Alternatively, listen to the audiobook. Again, they can be found online. Reread the text, making notes, creating posters for the characters. Maybe you want to do some revision flashcards. So yeah, just the same as what I said for Jekyll and Hyde, really, in terms of A Christmas Carol. Okay, now for Macbeth, obviously this is one of the more recent topics you have done. However, having said that, it is something that you have had to finish and complete on your own in lockdown. So, you know, we will be hopefully having some time in school to revisit the end of the play together. But this is a really good booklet here that you might want to work your way through. Again, it's got lots of extracts and it just talks you through it step by step. So I would really encourage you to work your way through it. It's quite a shorter booklet than the other ones, but still I would definitely encourage you to work your way through that. As well as that, I have also created what you can see here, the 100 questions recall grid. So just like I showed you for an inspector calls, you know, if I ask you these questions, you know, my hope would be that you would be able to answer most of them. There might be some on there. It might be a good idea to start by going through and you know, possibly highlighting the ones that you don't have a clue about, that you think, what on earth does that mean, or I have no idea. So, you know, what title does Macduff hold? If you don't know that, maybe highlight it and set yourself a challenge of perhaps trying to find out the answers to those. And if there are, by the end of it, if there are still some that you don't know the answers to, perhaps either emailing me and asking me, or bring it in with you in September, and in a revision session we can go through that together. We can discuss it and it will help you. So although you may not know the answer to all of these in the same way I hope you would with an inspector calls, it's worth knowing which ones you do know, and going away and trying to find the answers for the ones that you don't. Okay, now paper one is something you will have started with your class teacher just before school was obviously closed. Now, I thought long and hard about what to provide you for this, and I think realistically the best thing we can do at this stage, you will be coming back to paper one, is some extracts and some example questions. You will see there are 2, 4, 6 different extracts in there, and after each extract there's an example of an exam style, the questions you would get. So your first one will always be a listing of 4 things. Your second one, remember, will always be a language-based question, which you should be able to do fine. Your third one is about structure, and if any of you want a reminder about those things and you don't have your books at home, please send me a message and I can send you maybe some of the PowerPoints that we did on structure and language to remind you. And then the final question will always be an evaluation. After that, you'll see the section B, which is what you've been working on this half term, where you'll be given a title for a story or a description to work with. So here it says write a description suggested by the picture, so you could do that, or write a story that's set in a busy location. So perhaps you could think about the story you've been planning in the work we've been doing and think, right, well, how can I incorporate a busy location into that? You might be able to use the character you've already been working on. And the same, so it's the same throughout the booklet. It follows the same format of extract, questions, and then a description of the image. Okay, so that is what I will be putting on. I know it feels like it might seem like a lot to some of you. For some of you, you might think, well, actually, I want more than that. If you do, I'm just urging you to contact me. I will happily provide you with extra, but I am conscious of not overwhelming you. You know, you've got lots of other subjects that are important too, and you also do need a break. If you feel like this is far too much for you, again, there is no obligation to complete it all. I just urge you, please keep yourself ticking over, whether that's the work we've talked about here, or it's Seneca, or, you know, you've planned your revision in a different way. What matters is that you keep going. I'm sure you're finding it hard, you know, to keep that motivation, but please, you will not regret anything you do over this summer break. And I wish you all the best of luck with it all, and I hope you all have a wonderful summer. And I actually cannot wait to get back in September. So please take care, be safe, and happy revising.